Hey guys, I just finished watching and reading Jujutsu Kaisen for the first time, and needless to say, by the fact that I'm making this video is that I'm kind of blown away by it. Really, something that stands out to me personally, among other modern shonen, I think most people can agree that it's probably one of, if not the best, in recent memories. Everything about it is just so good. Like, I'm gonna talk about the anime and the manga here, but I'm gonna only talk about the anime in the first half, and then give a warning when I start talking about the manga if anyone here's a anime only watcher. But man, I believe it won anime of the year. I could be just totally wrong about that, but I believe I saw that somewhere, and I specifically remember thinking because at the time it wasn't even finished. I don't believe. I thought I was like, man, that's kind of jumping the gun a little bit, because I hadn't even watched it yet or started watching it yet. So I was like, because I've been sort of disappointed by a lot of modern shonen. I just thought it probably wasn't. It was probably just another overhyped thing. Like, I personally am not a fan of My Hero or Demon Slayer. Well, I mean, like I like them, but they're not quite. They're not. I'm not crazy about them. They're entertaining to watch, but they just don't quite reach that level that Jujutsu Kaisen did. It definitely blew my expectations away. I think that the animation alone, could carry the show. And like, but it has genuinely good characters, good story, a good power system to back it up, and I think it's really genuinely one of, if not my favorite modern shonens right now. So yeah, I guess I'll just get into it a little bit. I don't really have like a script or any thoughts, or like any like. I don't have any plan going into this, so I'm just gonna kind of be spewing information here and what I liked, what I didn't like. So bear with me if I go off on like random tangents or whatever. Like right out from the gate, I thought like it's very the pacing and the animation and like the comedy is all very snappy, and like you never feel bored because it's just always coming at you, and it's not even in like exposition dumps. There's like something interesting going on, like like with Toto, for example. Like we're getting expedition dumps around him, but it's also in this like comedic, like we're seeing like this inner machinations of his mind, how he like rationalizes things with this like weird middle school setting, where his like idol crush is a fellow student or whatever. Like that kind of thing is just it's so interesting, and the comedy is great, particularly in the anime. Just everything's so expressive. I really think there's just no words to explain how much I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think that's like the hardest I've laughed at an anime in recent memory, which is definitely saying something. But like, yeah, the power system too. The power system is very, very good in my opinion, particularly because it seems to me to be very reminiscent of Nen. Like replace curse energy with aura or Nen aura, and you've pretty much got the same thing going on. Where like you've got this bodily energy. The only really main difference is that in the case of cursed energy, it's spawned from negative emotions or whatnot. But you've got like the same idea of where you can pretty much accomplish anything with this like aura you have. But there's also like what are they called, like covenants? That's what they call in Nen covenants, but they're called like, I don't know, contracts or agreements or whatever, or like certain restrictions you can like impose on yourself to like boost your power. Like that's something that's with curse energy that's also prevalent with Nen. Like we've seen that if you explain your power, it'll give your Nen a boost, or not your Nen, your cursed energy a boost, which is good. Like I like that kind of thing. It's very reminiscent of Nen and Hunter x Hunter, very reminiscent of stands in JoJo. It just adds that like layer of strategy to like level out the just like the nuts to butts full out physical brawling, you know. Um, which, you know, as much as I like that stuff, it is nice to see that um, every once in a while. And I think Jujutsu Kaisen in particular does a pretty good job of balancing that out. Because even in Hunter x Hunter, you know, or JoJo, again, choose those examples, sometimes if we get like too deep into semantics with an overly and unnecessarily complex power, sometimes that could ruin the pacing of a fight or whatever. Um, but so far, I don't really have that complaint with Jujutsu Kaisen. Um, so far, all the fights have been enjoyable, even with, you know, more minor characters, I think. Um, so yeah, excellent power system. Especially like the domains thing. Um, Someone who made a good point on this was Grand Line Review, or I guess it was his second channel, the New World Review. Um, but he made a good point where like the domain expansions, um, like the thing about uh, like anime and manga set in modern day Tokyo or modern day Japan is that they run the risk of becoming very stock standard, if you know what I mean. Because it's a very commonly used setting and it doesn't really offer a lot of variety as far as like the background goes. And the thing that's nice about domain expansions is that it works into you know, the whole system of curse energy while also providing like more interesting like backdrops or fights, which, you know, I think that's very like a very clever thing to do. I don't know if that was his intention, but it definitely breaks up the like the monotony of the Jujutsu Kaisen backgrounds or the modern day Tokyo backgrounds or whatever, which is, you know, it's enjoyable. Like I guess said again, and I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but there's never a moment where I've, you know, been terribly bored by Jujutsu Kaisen. Um, but like as an overall, like it's enjoyable. It's an enjoyable experience. But like going into it, you know, as with most modern shonen, I wouldn't expect any like thought-provoking philosophical. I'm not even gonna try and pronounce that word again. Any thought-provoking, super deep revelations or deep storytelling or, you know, like Shakespearean masterpiece or whatever. But it's a good story. It's well thought out. It's compelling. It's mostly fights. Like it's very. I want to say it's similar to like Black Clover in a way because it follows a very similar arc structure to Black Clover where there's like very minimal setup, and not to say like a bad amount of setup. It's like the bare minimum without risking it being bad, and then going out like, and then the rest of the arc is all just like straight up fights, which is pretty effective. But, you know, in terms of, you know, storytelling, like you're not going to reach, you know, like One Piece levels of world building and character development and whatnot. But that's okay. Like for what Jujutsu Kaisen is, it does it incredibly well, I think. Um, but that, but at the end of the day, it is still, you know, modern shonen, and it is somewhat predictable. You know, somewhat. Uh, like I said earlier, it definitely held my engagement much more than other modern shonen. But it still does follow some of the same beats. Um, just looking at our main cast of characters, like Gojo and, you know, his three students immediately gave me Kakashi and Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura vibes. Um, I don't know if that's intentional, but the parallels seemed pretty obvious to me. Um, and like with the death, not the death painting, the womb. What was the cursed womb? Was it called the cursed womb? That very first arc with the cursed womb. I believe that's what it's called. Um, like we get that like report beforehand where like, oh, the three first year students were deployed on the scene and one of them died. And the second I saw that, I knew, oh yeah, it's gonna be Yuji and he's gonna get resurrected, and, you know, that's what happened. You know, just stuff like that. That's very predictable. But, you know, I don't fault that for happening. Fault the author that much because, you know, it's still an engaging plot. And, you know, I came like the death was handled fairly well, I guess. Like the resurrection, because resurrections obviously run the risk of a lot of I don't know, just plot plot armor, I guess, for lack of a better word. Um, but I think it was handled pretty well, more or less. Um, you know, we got a lot of it came at the price of, or not at the price, but like it involved a nice character moment between Megumi and Yuji, as like he took back his body from Sukuna or whatever. Um, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm just gonna move on from that topic. But I enjoyed it, even though it was predictable. Is what I'm trying to say. Um, but what else happened? The Mahito arc. That was pretty. That was definitely where it started becoming. Where it started like really elevating itself, in my opinion. Um, Especially because of how unapologetic it is, in how like morbid and dark it is, I guess, because the main theme, the main overarching theme, predominantly seems to be death. The very first like major character moment we see with Itadori, um, is his grandpa dying, and his final words about not dying alone, and helping as many people while you're alive, and that's Itadori's guiding mantra, I guess, going forward. Um, but in the cursed womb arc, he like comes to the realization that he doesn't want to die or whatever. Um, and time and time again, he has to face death, and it's very like it seems to be like he's genuinely facing more challenges than he is being uplifted. And that's where the kind of the more darker aspects come in. Um, but yeah, like the morbidity, like Junpei's mom, that whole situation again kind of predictable. Um, the second she was introduced, I kind of got that she's gonna die vibe, especially because earlier Junpei had that conversation with Mahito, where he was like he saw the transfigured humans, and he was just like, I that doesn't really bother me, but if it was my mom, then I would hate you. I was like, oh, his mom might be dead, um, or might be dying soon. Uh, so yeah, it was kind of predictable, but I liked how it was handled. They did it a bit differently in the anime, as opposed to the manga. And this isn't really a manga spoilers because it's effectively the same thing. Um, but you get like this again as a similar situation with the beginning of the cursed womb arc. You get like a police report, or I guess the Jujutsu sorcerer report about the event that happened. And it details how like the condition of Junpei's mom, and how like her body was discovered and whatnot, and like it's they show I shouldn't say they show it, they kind of like they have some visual aids, I guess, in the anime, and they kind of like briefly show um just a small part of Junpei's mom's corpse, very briefly. Like you get to see the ice packs or whatever that she was like stuffed full of, or I think it said. But like in the manga, it's just like a one singular large black panel with this like report over it, and like it's very effective in that it realizes that no, Akutami like very deliberately realizes that he can't draw anything that lives up to like the brutality of the scene that he's imagining there. Like the mom being like chopped in half, and like the upper half being like stuffed full of ice packs or whatever. Like just it's very I guess creative, for lack of a better word. Um, it's creative, and he's got like a good direction going with that. And like I said before, it's very brutal. Um, and I like that. And I think that brutality is very much a characteristic of like seinen anime or seinen manga too. So you don't really get to see this level quite as much in um in shonen, and I think that came as a very pleasant surprise, how well it was utilized. Um, but yeah, I think at this point I'm gonna start talking about the manga, just because I really want to talk about the Shibuya incident. Um, so manga spoilers ahead if you have not read past the anime content material. But yeah, the Shibuya incident arc. Actually, I should briefly touch on Gojo's past, because I did also really like Gojo's past arc. I didn't have any specific things I wanted to touch on, other than it was just, I don't know. Again, with that very like that brutality, I guess, because uh, like the what was her like title called, like the star plasma vessel getting like shot in the head or whatever, like just as she turned around and got the realization of you know maybe I want to actually just live my life or whatever, like that again. And that's very similar to what happened in the Mahito arc with Junpei. Right as Itadori started to get to him, Mahito just arrived and transfigured him, and then he died. Like Akutami definitely has skill with like building up hope just to, rip it away from you at the last moment, which is done very well again in the Gojo's past. And in the Shibuya incident, it's just, again, like I said, it's just like pretty much like 90% fighting. Very minimal setup. We get to learn what the enemy's plan is and how the Jujutsu sorcerers are responding, and then they just go at it. Like and the it I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I'm going on like the whole death tangent again. Um, Again, Akutami isn't afraid to kill characters. Like Nanami. Um, like especially seeing that Nanami was such a like particularly well developed character. I think he'd gotten the most focused, or not the most, but one of the most focus um, out of the characters outside of the main, core four, Gojo and the other three. Um, I would say he probably got the most for excluding those four. Um, and Akutami was just very comfortable with killing him off, and I think that's territory that a lot of shonen not dare travel into. But he died, and he was I thought he was one of my favorite characters. And he died in a very brutal way. If I remember correctly, like his entire like top half was disintegrated, and we saw like his spine or whatever like poking out of the bottom half. Um, so yeah, and then Nobara died. I'm saying died with air quotes, because I'm not entirely positive that he would kill off one of the core four. Um, but it's entirely possible that he did, and I wouldn't be entirely upset with that fact if he decided to. Um, but yeah, just the action throughout that entire bit is nice. Um, I guess I don't really have any like crazy deep thoughts to say on it, because like once again, as I said, there's not like any like deep narrative going into it. Um, it's pretty much just all out brawling. The only like big, I guess if you want a narrative, like the whole thing with Geto being revealed to be Noritoshi Kamo, or I guess it was revealed in like the most recent chapters that it's not Noritoshi Kamo, but like a different person or a different like entity that possessed Noritoshi Kamo, and later possessed Geto, as we see now, and might have possessed Yuji's mom, I guess. His mom had like the scars on her forehead. I don't know if that was implying that the brain being was Yuji's mom or whatever. But I think that's what I was going for. Um, but yeah, and the whole narrative with, once again, Yuji like failing, and like he's he's trying to help people, but he always comes up negative, I feel like. and that's increasingly taking a toll on him. As Sukuna was able to take over and pretty much like decimated half the city or whatever. Um, so yeah, I think that was like the only like major like narrative going on there, but it was just all enjoyable. I really didn't have any complaints with it, um, which that's rare, I guess, with a modern shonen. But yeah, I'm kind of just drawing this out here. Uh, I don't really have anything particularly else to say on the matter, other than I liked it, uh, but that being said, I really like Jujutsu Kaisen. I think it has a lot of potential, and I hope it keeps it up. And I'm excited for the movie too. I think there's a movie coming out based on uh, Volume Zero, which I have read. I didn't talk about it at all. I enjoyed it, but it was kind of, um, to say the least, Akutami definitely became a stronger writer during Jujutsu Kaisen rather than during his one shot or prequel or whatever that was. I think it was like a short story or whatever, and then it got like popular and got expanded into the full, Jujutsu Kaisen we know today. But I could be wrong there. But with that being said, I guess that's all I have to say on the topic. So see ya.